Hi folks, welcome to this video. This is on the evaluation of strength. So this is one of 4 videos on the strength-based topics. What we're going to look at in this one is how do we measure it, how do we test it, i.e. how do we evaluate it. So we're going to look at, 4 tests, but 2 of them are going to be combined because we're looking at different types of strength: maximum strength, explosive strength or power, and strength endurance, also known as muscular endurance. So what we're going to look at in terms of development of maximum strength is the use of a 1 rep max. What this little dude's doing here, I've seen him lift that, it's absolutely incredible. Hand grip dynamometer. In terms of the explosive strength or power, we're going to look at the vertical jump test that this lady is doing here. And in terms of strength endurance, an example of a test is going to be this guy doing the abdominal curl test. So we're going to look at each one in turn, and then we'll look at the advantages and disadvantages of each method. So I thought we'd get it all down again, and then we can deal with it one at a time. So the 1 rep max, maximum weight lifted in a single contraction. Now the thinking here is you get into the gym and you pick the muscle group you want to look at. So legs, it could be a squat. Chest and shoulders, it could be bench press, something like that. You could even do a 1 rep max on bicep curls or something like that. So what you are doing is you are finding the weight that you can lift once and once only. You can't get a second lift out. You can't get a second rep. Hence why it's called your 1 rep max. And that is therefore a measure of the strength of that muscle, because, maximum strength is the maximum weight you can lift in a single contraction. Now, obviously, it requires a little bit of trial and error, because chances are you're going to go in and not know what your 1 rep max is, therefore you've got to try and find the weight. But the advantages of this kind of test is it involves movement or dynamism. It's sport specific. I apologise, there should be a bracket there to close it off. So in other words, you are doing an actual lift. And like I said, if it's a squat, the hip joints are moving, the knees are moving, the ankles are moving, just as they would in a jump or a squat during a sport that you play. So it is, by doing a 1 rep max, we are doing a sport specific movement. It's a relatively easy procedure. You just got to you've got to get in the gym and find the weight that you can lift once and once only. And the other advantage is we can target specific muscle groups. I can find the 1 rep max of the quads and the glutes and the hammies. I can find the 1 rep max of the deltoids and the traps, so I can isolate muscle groups. The key disadvantages here are it is very fatigue inducing. What we mean by that is, you might have to try and lift the weight. Can you lift it a second time? Yeah, you can, right? Well, that's not your 1 rep max. So you need to add a bit more weight. But then you need to give yourself a couple of minutes to fully recover so you can have another go. Then again, if you can lift that weight twice, it's not your 1 rep max again. And then you've got to add more weight, give yourself recovery time. So it can take a while to find these 1 rep max values, and it can be quite time consuming. It can be quite fatiguing. You need good technique. It's got to be absolutely essential. If you don't have good technique, then you're not going to be able to lift the weight properly, and that is therefore going to lead to a higher potential for injury. And what I mean here is difficult to isolate individual muscle groups. We can target specific muscle groups, like I said, but targeting individual muscles is very, very difficult. For example, if I do the squat, when I'm doing the squat, my gluteals are contracting at the hip joint, quadriceps at the knee, hamstrings at the hip joint, gastrocnemiae at the ankle joint. Well, which muscle group am I actually testing a 1 rep max of? Is it all of them? Are some of them fatiguing early, and it's some of the bigger ones that are lasting longer? So it's really, really difficult to isolate individual muscles when we're doing the 1 rep max. So there is another test for maximum force, and it's one that I bet you've done before, the hand grip strength test. So, using a hand grip dynamometer. But again, it's maximum strength because it's how much force you can generate in a single contraction. You squeeze on that hand grip dynamometer as hard as you can, and it measures the maximum force you produce in that single contraction. So the advantages here are very simple and quick. It's inexpensive, and it's actually got quite high reliability. With regards to that high reliability, what I mean is generally grip strength is not a bad indicator of overall body strength, and the high reliability. How easy is the test to repeat? Well, very easy. So should we fitness test someone at the start of the year and then retest them 6 months down the line? It's very unlikely that they've adjusted their technique, and that's the reason they've got stronger. It's just because they have actually got stronger. But the obvious disadvantages are, even though it's got high reliability, it does only assess grip. But if I'm interested in lower body strength, that's irrelevant. Grip is irrelevant to that. And like I said, it's very rare that a sport or an event is decided by the quality of your grip strength. It's more the quality of your movements at the shoulder joints, the elbows, the hips, knees, and ankles. So it's not really that sport-specific test. So next test then, strength endurance. So if you remember, the ability to repeat a contraction over and over again. So surprise, surprise, what we've got to do is got to get them working a muscle group over and over again. And what we've got is the abdominal curl test, which is continuous sit-ups at progressive intensities until exhaustion. You may have done this. It is exactly like the bleep test, the multi-stage fitness test, but for your abdominals. So you start doing sit-ups in time with the beeps, and at the start, the beeps are quite far apart. Beep, 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 and so on. So you can do quite slow sit-ups. As the test goes on, the beeps get closer together, so you've got to do faster and faster sit-ups until you can't do them anymore. So you can't keep in time with the beeps. So what we've got is the big advantage of this, just like the bleep test or the multi-stage fitness test, we can do this abdominal curl test with large groups, so I can test strength endurance with many people in one go. It's simple and cheap. There's even an app that you can download to do it. Valid and reliable, so again, we can repeat the test. We can look, you can look at your core stability. And the core muscles, let's be honest, they're important in pretty much every single sport. They are your main fixator. They lock your spine in position, allow you to move your limbs with good balance. So, it's quite a good test to do. But the disadvantages are correct technique is essential. You can't be counting half sit-ups and letting them count. They've got to get the shoulders all the way onto the back, all the way onto the ground, and elbows up to the knees. So you've got to make sure that they're getting good technique all the time. It is a test to exhaustion, as the bleep test is, so motivation can be an issue. You might drop out before you actually need to, just because it's uncomfortable and you don't want to carry on. But also, even though the core muscles are very important in most sports, sit-ups isn't really a sport-specific action, not really. So again, there's an issue there surrounding sport specificity. But that's a way of evaluating strength endurance. And finally then, explosive strength, aka power. You can do the standing long jump, but in the exam board specification, it just mentions the vertical jump test. So that's the one we're going to look at. Let's cut down on the workload. So the vertical jump test is the maximum jump height measured in order to assess leg power. I bet you've done this before. Reach up, your hand as far as you can with your feet flat, and measure where your fingertip is on the wall. Then reach up and jump, slap the wall with chalk on your fingers, and measure the difference between the two hand marks, where you were when you were standing and where you are where you jumped to. So an easy test. You need chalk and a meter ruler, essentially. If you haven't, but you can even buy things that you stick to the wall in order to do it properly. You can do it by yourself. The test can be self-administered. Quite easy to do it. And there are data tables available to convert the height you jump into power levels. So again, it's quite simple, quite effective to use. But the disadvantages are, it only estimates leg power. Well, what if I'm, interested in upper body power, rugby tackles, or rowing, or the action on the oar, or punching in boxing, things like that. And equally, again, the test is not isolated to a single muscle group. It's a bit like the 1 rep max again. When you jump, you're using the glutes, quads, hamstrings, gastrocnemiae. So you're measuring the overall power of those muscle groups, not just one muscle on its own. You can't just measure leg power in the quads or leg power in the hamstrings. You've got to do it as a collective muscle group. So that's another disadvantage. So they're the ways that we can evaluate strength, the various types of strength, and there's the issues, the advantages and disadvantages of each test. Hope you found this video useful, folks.